Oh, welcome back to Miniature Dragon Comic Review, coming to you live from the home of the Gum Wall, the Glass Garden, and of course, Miniature Dragon Comics, Seattle, Washington. As always, I'm your host for the evening. I am a meat popsicle, Daniel Doc Gentry, and back from the Dark World, our comic guru from Miniature Dragon Studios, Alex. And thank you, Claire, for joining us again. This is awesome. Woody's not here because he's partying like it's 1999. We just want to wish him a happy birthday, and he's actually working, but we wish he was partying, so we're just going to push that on everybody. So welcome, Claire and Alex. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having us. And it's great always to see you, Claire.
Thanks. It's good to be here. I like talking.
And we got a great book to talk about. So
No, we are not going to let that go. Claire didn't say she likes talking about comic books. She says she likes talking.
You caught it. Dang it.
God, I love your hair today, too, Claire. I think I tried to say that beforehand.
Got something different. So thanks.
Awesome. Now you can do the Justin Bieber thing, too.
Flip. Yeah. Now I have to burn it, but that's okay.
Oh, no. How about Teenage Warhead something or other?
Negasonic Teenage Warhead?
Yes, her too.
I'll take that. That's good.
Only if you blow things up and have an awesome partner in a relationship who figures out that it's a bad idea to do something. That's all I'm going to say on that. I do not want to ruin that movie for those that haven't seen it.
Sounds perfect.
Welcome back. We are diving back into, of course, one of the greatest comic book series. And the only comic book I was reading before we even started this is the Saga series. I have number 5 here. Number 2 is too far away. I would bring it up. But we are doing volume 2 today. And for those of you who do not remember, Image Comics does this. Volume 2 was put out June 19th, 2013. By the way, we're doing the graphic novel series. Saga actually is a comic book as well. If you like to gather those individually, they have some unique art that you miss by getting the volume instead of the comic book.
Oh, that's interesting. So, because I know a lot of times when they do a trade paperback graphic novel or whatever you want to call it, they do add in some of that additional art. So how much do you actually miss with the individual issues?
I should be a little bit more specific. You get the covers, but they're very small. Have you seen that, how they shrink them for the chapters?
Yes.
That's what I mean. You're not getting the whole art because it's not the whole. For me, that's taking away from the art because you're shrinking it, so you're going to miss something. Where if you have it as a full cover, it looks way better. That's just me personally. But I do recommend picking up individual comics for this because, well, these people are awesome. In fact, it's written by Brian Vaughan and my favorite artist, Fiona Staples. No offense, Claire.
None taken. None taken. She's pretty awesome.
She is pretty awesome. So, Volume 1, just to catch up on everybody, we start the series by 2 races that should not have anything in common. A female from the winged race, male from the horned race. They decide to start a relationship. Very vivid. By the way, we try to do a lot of stuff that's kid-oriented, and I just want to warn you, adults that are listening to this comic book has a lot of graphic stuff in it, and you, as the parent, if you're involved with your kid's life, is the best judge for what's appropriate for your kids. But beware that there's a lot of stuff in this. In fact, as it goes on later on, there's a lot of very graphic details of genitalia. So just wanted to give you guys that heads up. It is a neat comic book, and it's not all about that stuff. They just throw it in there. But like I said, they start a relationship. They have a kid, and it's not supposed to be able to live. In fact, the comic book hits on that other people, they've had crossbreed kids before, but they expire. And the cool part about this comic book is it's written from the view of the child. At the end of Volume 1, they were escaping with their new nanny into outer space.
Yeah, and I gotta say, it's an interesting pick of having it as almost journal entries, but at the same time having it as one part flashback, but at the same time feeling like it's in the present day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I know that you've made mention about flashbacks. Yes, and that is the cover.
I knew I had it near me. I do apologize. You're seeing the pictures for Volume 1. A lot of this is last minute. Everybody had a very busy week. So if you're watching this and you love to watch a show and you're like, hey, something's wrong, that's the difference. So, but
No. Doc, actually what you're doing is making sure that there's no spoilers for Volume 2. So now on like, because I know that you've said previously, Doc, about going into flashbacks and things of that kind of statement of how did you feel about like on this book about like the necessary parts that they do of going into flashbacks, and did it irritate you? That was one thing that I was wondering about.
Yeah, don't be mad at me, Brian. Yeah, it did. But it's flashbacks to explain something that's happening in the moment, which I absolutely hate about that. No offense to Brian Vaughan, because I love these comic books, I really do, but that's lazy writing to me. And but I will give this benefit of the doubt. Technically, all these books are a flashback because it's written from the kid's point of view while she's older and she's telling the story. So technically it's one big flashback, but I do not like the whole flashback to explain something that's outside the story. It's a little bit lazy writing. You can, and they do both. Brian definitely does in these comic books. He'll explain stuff in the past by putting it in the writing, which I find that to be very enjoyable. I love that. I can't get enough of it. But again, on the flip side of that, again, it's lazy writing to me. I feel that way anyways. But Brian does both, so I wonder, if other people might enjoy that. I don't. I don't know what you guys think, and I'm just rambling at this point because I'm I don't mean to be backpedaling, but I'm not backpedaling. I don't like it when comic books do that. I don't like that when movies do that. I don't like when stories do that. I don't like when books do that. I don't like when any of my entertainment does this very generic, it's easier for me to give you this flashback of a situation so you understand it than for me to write something so that you understand what me and this character and this other character have that this is going to the past for. You know what I mean?
There's some parts where like part of the visual definitely does help enhance, but I do get what you mean by it. Like when it was showing now it's Mako, right? Or
Mako.
Showing him as a kid, I really like that part of like showing him with his dad, and there's a scene that they interact with. And I felt like it wasn't bad on the storytelling, and also the interactions with the two main characters, like how they actually developed their relationship. I didn't feel like it subtracted. It wasn't like in the movie Underworld Part 2, where they actually just literally use scenes from the first movie to give you a recap. That is exactly kind of like what you were talking about, Doc, about like this was just laziness of like, okay, if you're going to reshoot some stuff, and show like, part of these past exploits of what happened, okay, that's fine, whatever. But to just take pieces from your previous movie and just shoehorn them in was just completely lazy. But at least with this book, it's like I felt the flashbacks weren't like a subtractor. They weren't like, oh, okay, what a waste of time. Or like, you're literally just taking pieces of art from previous issues and shoehorning it in.
Well, I get what I agree. having that on the table, though. Claire, you were making the I smelled a fart face when I was explaining why I don't like flashbacks. Do you have something interesting to add, or
I didn't even think about it as I was reading it, other than it interrupted the flow of the story a little bit. It wasn't enough to catch to like comment on, but as you guys are talking, I'm thinking about it, and perhaps maybe the only problem is that the first issue was just such bang 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 bang, and in this one we have so many flashbacks and flash forwards that the flow of the story was so different. That did hang me up a little bit. But thinking about it, I don't know how they could have gotten all that information in there in a timely manner enough to get it. So I'm not sure. I have no opinion on it one way or another, but I definitely think it's an interesting point as far as writing and getting that much story out at once, and in comparison to the first book.
And I think it's just the dungeon master in me. Like I said, I've been doing that. Well, we were talking beforehand, and Claire just asked. So, I've been doing dungeon master, game master, and storytelling for almost 30 years. And it would be really lazy for me to say, oh, here is, like, this is what happened in the past, and go. if anybody's listened to the podcast when it was out, Bros and Dragons, I would do little stories that were happening at the same time that the characters were doing their things, and it would start the podcast off. But those things were happening in the moment elsewhere. They weren't. I'm not telling you a story from like, oh, here's a flashback to this thing, and now we're going to go to this. And I think even in the game, in the podcast, one of the things that my players and I did really well together was we told you the story that already existed without going to this flashback thing. It was told in such a way that I think that the people that I've talked to anyways really understood the story of Deimos in the gaming thing. And if I can do that in a game to make it into a podcast with three people that are definitely not on the same page as me as we're telling a story together, it's lazy to me that people that make movies, write books, and write comic books would do that particular thing. But I do know what you mean, Alex, when you talk about the visualization. Seeing it is actually pretty cool. Like, don't get me wrong, but that little flashback, this is where I mean it's lazy writing. If that was in the first book, we wouldn't have to do it right now. And that's my problem with it. Start the story where the story starts. You don't need to add extras to the beginning of the story later on in the story.
No, and
I get you. Okay.
And it definitely does make that flow of, like also what you were saying, Claire, of you get to this momentum and then you slam on the brakes and then you have to go a different direction and then go back to it. And then as you're making momentum of like how the first volume was, then you come to a screeching halt to basically go into the past or jump to a different part of what's going on, and you're not getting that same flow. And I mean, it's like, that's the part of like that storytelling of like, if you had some of those flashbacks or like, started in the past, would the flow really work? Like, if you saw the various characters as a child from volume 1, would that work? Would it be better to actually start their story as the two of them are in that prison area, or at the place where they initially are giving birth to the actual main character that's going to be part of the saga story?
I think it started for having that volume and going through issue 1 that first volume. I thought that was a great way to start it. I was actually talking to my friend about Saga yesterday. She just started reading them, and we were talking about how great it was to start the whole series with that one image of, I don't know. If we
yes.
Is this happening? And it was just, that was a really great arc and how that all kind of flowed. But as a storyteller and a writer, it is interesting to think how I would have solved that problem. And I don't know if I would have done any different, because you have that one volume that is cohesively that, and then you're going to volume 2. And yeah, maybe you could have put that stuff in the first one, but I don't know if it would have gotten the same feeling, and I don't know. It's interesting.
And to point out, it's actually the beginning of I think the second or third comic in the second volume story. So like that collective comics for volume 1, this is the second set of those collections. Mm-hmm. This isn't even the first. I don't even think it's the second. I think it's the third comic, where the third comic literally starts with that story of them being in a prison, which if you're reading the comic book, that would throw you off. Personally.
Yes. No, that's quite understandable. And I mean, that is that kind of benefit of getting a trade paperback graphic novel in comparison to individual issues, where it's like, I have seen things like that, and that has thrown off, like, did I miss an issue? Is it, like that level of what Marvel does of Wolverine is jumping to from Canada to Mexico to New York, and because he's in the X-Men title this, X-Men title that, the Wolverine title, and he has to fly to Japan to kill some ninjas. And did I miss something in between? Or is it just the fact of like, oh, okay, you're starting with a flashback, and what's going on?
And in those movies, first off, I'll just say this. Let me preface everything I'm about to say with, It's time to let it go. The X-Men are dead. They did awesome for a long time. Now it's time to move on, people. They had to do that with that because it was an independent movie from a story that wasn't told. So they could not start that any other way. Those could not be in there. That's not lazy writing. And that's the difference. Lazy writing is like you said, where they used the things from the first movie to kind of give you a feeling for the second movie. No, just assume that the people watching your movie already seen the first one. It's not that hard.
Have you guys seen Infinity War?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, can we take a moment to appreciate that one of the things that happens in there, I don't even know if I can explain this without super spoilers, but they did a flashback with footage from a previous movie, but they arranged the shot in such a way that it was perfectly put in. And it was...
okay, I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of, like, that is a good point of, like, it definitely did not bother me.
No, I was super impressed.
But
with
it wasn't frame for frame. Also, it was. If you look at it, it's a different angle than the original, and it was to show that something else was happening during that particular moment. Which that's genius. That's good writing.
Yeah, that was good.
So
anyway,
but outside of that, Saga really does a good thing. Like when they start out this comic and they get moving, you feel like you're kind of confused at the beginning, and with zero flashback things, you really feel like you're up to speed, like you know what's going on. And then you don't know enough, so it's perfect because as we get into Volume 2, the little things that get introduced into Volume 2, you're like, wait, what? Like, oh, now that makes sense. And this, the whole series is going to do this to you people. I'm just going to warn you now. Every new volume, you're like, there's nothing else they could possibly do that's going to, oh my god, what did they just do? And it's beautiful, and they do a great job of it. This particular thing that we're talking about is when Marco and Alana meet for the first time, where Marco's a prisoner and Alana's a guard. And they don't understand each other, and then you're like, oh, blah, blah, how does that happen? And then it gets explained, and it's very interesting. But off topic, that particular thing, like I get it had to happen. What I mean by lazy writing is they didn't expect it when they started the series. Like they were like, oh crap, we really have to explain that part now. Does that make sense?
that chewing horn in and like, oh, retroactively, let's place in this thing that like here's this character that should have always been there, but we didn't think about it initially.
Is that how you guys feel? I kind of feel like they intentionally built the story to start in the middle and be explained.
No, and I agree with that. I just like I've seen so many other like properties do that where it's like not that real flow through, not that real level of thinking it out of what the end game is. And like just thinking back of just various other properties from Invader Zim, there was a great like little episode that actually makes fun of part of that, where there's a character that's a moose, and Zim just basically yells the way that he does of like he's always been here. And, it's kind of making fun of that classic trope of like, oh, okay, here's a character that, never appeared in any other like part of the medium, but yet now is here and, is an important part and then never shows up again, which is another part that so many other comic books, so many other various properties do.
So it's
can we give a shout out to the self-awareness of Joan Vasquez and all of his stuff? So... he did Invader Zim and Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. So good. Anyway.
So, but going back to this one, when we talk about that, I agree that it was written at that and made to tell the story, but they don't do a lot of flashbacks to tell the story. That's what I mean by non-lazy writing. I don't care that you're going to tell me a story from the middle.
Right.
Just don't go back to anything to tell your story. That's where I come from with that. And it happens a couple of times in the series. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm ahead. I'm in 5. But it's one of those things that I'm going to go ahead and give Brian a pass because he's beautifully done. This is 9 times out of 10 he's telling the story without doing a flashback to get you to understand what happened in the past. and I love that. And I can allow that 10% to go by where you have to draw out the flashback. I personally don't enjoy that kind of thing normally, but with other writers, they always go to that. Where Brian, it seems like he gets to a point where he's like, I can't, so now I gotta trust Fiona to draw it out instead of having the story the way I wanted it. And
no, I think that goes into that statement of like, it's a visual storytelling element opposed to a trope, a level of basically faltering on your capabilities. Mm-hmm. Like, I do agree with that. It's like, I've exhausted the fact of like verbally communicating it out, and it's almost more of like the memories of the characters, replaying, opposed to like the cutting back and meanwhile while this event happened.
Yeah, I like that. Meanwhile, at the Legion of
Meanwhile.
I will say this though, Fiona did not lack on the art. In fact, I think she stepped up her game in this volume, these set of books. She is, as time goes on, the characters get more and more developed artistically, but they don't lose from the original volumes. Like I said, I'm ahead, but from volume 1 to volume 2 even, you see that the characters themselves are progressing, more detail, what am I trying to say? Facial features, how their expressions are, and it from from one expression to the same expression later on, they are true to it, and I love that. So kudos, Fiona. Seriously, I also love that the new characters, again, how they're introduced in this one. There's 3 main new characters that are introduced in this one, and they give you a little bit on other characters that you might see later on. And then I believe Fiona or Claire, last time we talked about this, were you here for volume 1?
Yeah.
Was that you that mentioned that, I'm not going to blow anything for you, but that this particular guy, you said, oh, you see him and you don't see him again in the series?
And then he comes back.
In Saga 2.
Yep. That was nice. That was a nice little add in there.
So
I was happy to see that.
But they do bring him back, but they also like bring back some really interesting people as well. And there's little characters that are going to be introduced here that create a whole different dynamic off the story that's being told. And to be honest, for a second there, I was like, I really don't care about these 2 anymore. Go back to this person, and Lion Cat again is in this, and go back to that because I want to know more about what's going on there. Personally, I thought it was a great little additive, and I wanted to know more. But
I do definitely like to say it's like the characters' motivations, the way that they're portrayed. There's some like really just great stories of what's going on, and like how this birth, like this event that follows these characters, is having these rippling effects on various other people. Like even individuals that don't seem to be directly tied to the story are affected by the characters that are in one level or another affected. Like with Lion Cat, you have the Will, and his interactions with others have already started like shaping up. Like one of the places that the Will and the Lion Cat go to, affects that little girl. And it's like, what an interesting story that's going to be. And how she's jumped onto like what's going on.
And every time you try to say Lion Cat, I think you're trying to say Lion King.
Yeah. A little like tongue-tied, Woody's not here, so somebody has to be.
Mazabania. Anyway. We got 4 minutes left, so we can. Anybody want to talk about anything that's in here without spoiling anything too much that you thought was awesome?
I like Gwendolyn a lot.
Okay.
She's rocking.
Gwendolyn's rocking, I agree. Tree Ship, by the way.
Tree Ship.
Definitely the uniqueness of like some of the items. I thought like the rings, the pendant, the helmets that the horned individuals have are quite interesting, like the magic system.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
Like really interesting, like the way that they're working and the way that you're seeing how all these various items in this universe work.
one of the neat things as a tabletop gamer that I find very interesting about Saga is the components for casting spells. They're very unique. And kudos to the writer. It's unlike anything I've seen, and I haven't played them all, but I've played over 100 different tabletop systems, and it is very unique. And I love the quality that they put into it. The uniqueness. It's not like, oh, if I have moss, I can create fire. You know, your trope kind of components for things. But I found it super interesting. We're coming into the last 3 minutes, so I guess we got to do final thoughts. I feel like we've only been talking about this for 4 minutes. Claire, give me some final thoughts on Volume 2.
I love the backstory. I love the romance novel thing that comes up. I love how smart that tie-in is and all the metaphors that are going on. Very, I don't know. It's very good, and I'm impressed with it so far, and it's going to keep getting better, I'm sure, so I'm excited about it.
Sweet. Alex?
The art is amazing. Definitely steps up its game. The characters are well put together. The story has such a unique world, like I was saying about like the various aspects of the characters and the items. Like, if you love space fantasy, this is a great book to definitely pick up.
And yeah, it has all those little different elements in it. I love that it's... Hold on one second.
Rough.
I thought my dog was going to be the one that wrecked the show. He's over here, been threatening to bark the whole time. Nice. Good dog.
Well, it's no carjacking, but animals are well loved.
Yes.
So anyways, bad timing on feeding the dogs, that's all. But what was I saying before my talk?
Well, this does show that that is the joy of a live show. If anything can go off the cusp. So you were giving your final thoughts.
Yeah.
Don't be too rough.
Yeah, rough. Art in this is amazing. Like I said, I think Fiona stepped up her game in Volume 2. The text box, the lettering in this, I thought was really good. Again, I'm amazed at the lettering for the ghosts. That was unique. 'Cause not only is that lettering, but that's art. Because of the color change to let you know that that's happening. And I thought that was pretty good. The story, even with those little things that I don't like, those little tropes that I don't like, this is a great story. I am drawn into Saga. It's not even a little thing. I'm a fan of Saga. It's the only comic book I was reading before we started this. It meets the top 3 really well. I mean, there's some improvements when you look back, but hindsight's 20/20 on stuff. I try not to be too judgmental on like, oh, they didn't think about it before. But, we hit on the major ones, like if they totally screw up, we admit they totally screwed up on stuff. When we talk about certain comic books, like, I'm not going to say which ones in the past, but if you look at older episodes, we've nailed people on lettering being in the wrong person is saying the wrong thing. That's got to be embarrassing. But, yeah, I love Saga. I recommend everybody pick it up if you love art. It's great. If you love story, it's great. And if you love just the little components of lettering, which Woody's really weirdly attracted to that kind of stuff, it's amazing too as well. This is a great comic book. I think it has a lot for everybody. If you don't like it, I'd like to hear from you though, because I'd like to see where your point is. And honest people, if you're not being honest, you can troll me at mdreviewcast@gmail.com, or you can hit me up at anywhere on any social media at imdmdoc. I welcome trolls. You all usually make me laugh, and the internet doesn't hurt my feelings. Before we go, I just want to say that if anybody does know Fiona Staples, or this reaches out to Brian Vaughn, we're going to try to do the whole series from time to time, and we would love to hear or have you come on. It's unfair to talk about people's work without inviting them. And I dropped the ball this week and I didn't invite them. I usually look up people on their Twitter accounts and send them an invite to the show. And I didn't do it this time. But anyways, from all of us here at Miniature Dragon Comic Review, keep it nerdy and live your dreams.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.